Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Board Work Session for Wednesday, November 29th, 2023. It is 10:10 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Vice Chair of the Board. Our Commissioner Mejia is excused this morning. We have Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Klaus, Commissioner Fournier, and we have Assistant County Manager to my right, Rob Gelder, and Interim County Manager Robin Campbell. Staff from the Community Planning Economic Development Department, because today's topic is 2023 Conservation Futures Applications, our second round. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. We have just a half an hour, which is now down to less than that. Maybe we can sneak over time if we need to, because we have another hour for treatment sales tax after that.
Right.
Does anyone have a hard stop at 11:30?
You should be able to reduce a little of the time off.
Yeah, so you guys can go a little over the 19 minutes because I think it's gonna take longer. So anyway, we've got Ashley arrived from Community Planning. And does it go straight to you?
Sure. Good morning, Board of County Commissioners. Thank you for having us. We are here today to talk about Conservation Futures. It's actually a round 2 funding package. So this is kind of an exciting opportunity. I'll let Andrew DeFobis from our team go ahead and take the lead on presenting background on the projects. Yeah, go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you. All right, I will go ahead and launch my presentation. Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew DeFobis, Senior Planner with Community Planning. I'm here today to talk about round 2 of the 2023 Conservation Futures Program. This briefing will give you some background on the program, cover the process that has played out so far this year, and give an overview of the applications that were received in the second round. So Conservation Futures is a program authorized by the state legislature to support the protection of a variety of lands, including wildlife habitat, forest lands, agricultural properties, historic and recreational properties. The county has been collecting a property tax levy since about 1990 to support the acquisition of land or conservation easements on land. In 2023, the rate paid by taxpayers was about 3 cents per $1,000 assessed value, compared to a maximum that can be collected under state law of 6.25 cents per 1,000. The funds are managed by the Board of County Commissioners, and the board allocates $500,000 a year for new project opportunities. Some quick stats for you. Since 1990, 52 projects have been completed, representing approximately $20.8 million in Conservation Futures funds and 5,700 acres conserved. And this does include the 33-acre Powell Creek property that the board funded earlier this year in the first round. It's already completed, that's been sewn up and it's done, so that's exciting. And there's also one project in the pipeline that was funded last year but has not yet been completed. That is a 228-acre conservation easement on Totten Inlet. The board awarded $750,000 last year, so that one is still in process. Generally, how the process works, it operates like an annual grant program. Every year, applications are due by March 1st, and applications have to be sponsored by an entity that's eligible to receive those funds under RCW 8434. Most often we see that it's a land trust, but it could be city government, and the county may also directly expend those funds. There's a ranking committee that reviews the applications and makes recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. It's made up of county advisory board members and an agency technical experts. So I'll take a moment and list those off. This year, for the Agriculture Advisory Committee, we had Gary Klein. We had Britt Niederhood for the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board, Chris Hoffman for the Historic Commission, Ann Warmond representing the Yelm Parks Board. Thurston County no longer has a Parks Commission, so we usually go out to other jurisdictions and see if they can lend us any parks expertise. Katrinka Hibbler represented Thurston Conservation District. We had Stephanie Jolivet from the Washington Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, Jennifer Eberly from Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and Amy Hatchwinicka from Thurston Regional Planning Council, who's their salmon lead entity coordinator. Okay, and ultimately, so those folks will hear the applications, they will make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. Ultimately, it's the board who selects the projects to fund and how much. So this year, because the board did not fully allocate the 2023 funds back in June, and due to some emerging conservation opportunities at the time, the board directed staff to open a second round of applications. So staff did open that second round, issued a call with a deadline of September 15th, and we received 2 additional applications this year. The ranking committee was reconvened and met on October 27th to hear presentations and form their recommendations to the board. So these are the ranking criteria that are established by the board and are used by the ranking committee to review and score applications and make their recommendations. They look at how well the project fits into the overall goals of the program and its objectives. They consider how time sensitive is the project, how likely is it that the land would potentially be sold or see additional development if it was not protected. And they look at the specific attributes of the property. So is it habitat for endangered or threatened species? Does it present a salmon restoration opportunity? Does it have historic or cultural resources, or is it working forest or ag land? Those are all the kind of things they consider. They look at how likely is the project to succeed given all the information they have available to them. They look at how much match is offered by project applicants. Match is not a requirement, but it potentially does score more points for an application. And similarly with public access, it's not a requirement of any projects that are receiving Conservation Futures funds, but it does boost the score if public access is an element. So this map shows the location and the names of the 2 projects for which applications were received this year. We've got the Lower Deschutes River floodplain expansion and then MK Valley acquisition further south. So I'll start with the Lower Deschutes River floodplain expansion. This is a proposed fee title acquisition of 61 acres of Deschutes River floodplain. Project sponsor is Olympia Ecosystems, which is formerly the Olympia Coalition for Ecosystem Preservation. The funding request is $121,500. No matching funds are provided for this project, but the applicant has highlighted that recent acquisitions they have made in the area as match. This property is located about 1 mile east of the Olympia Airport, east of Old Highway 99. I'll show you some photos in a minute. And the area in question has limited riparian vegetation. The applicants plan to do a lot of floodplain restoration and riparian restoration if they are able to acquire the property. And it's immediately across the river from about 370 acres of land that Oli Ecosystems has previously preserved. And they anticipate being able to close on this property on April 1st of next year. So the image on the right, so the property in question is shown in highlighted in red, and other areas that are protected in the area are shown in green and yellow. The area bounded in yellow is previously protected by the Oli Ecosystems. This is the Ellwanger Creek property, if you've heard of that, or Snyder's Prairie. It's had a couple different names over time. And then other additional area in green is protected by Capital Land Trust. So the proposed acquisition would be adjacent to a big chunk of land that's already protected. The image on the left shows a larger photo of the property. The yellow arrows there are showing the approximate western extent of the property, and it goes to the river. So the second application was the MK Valley acquisition. This is a proposed fee title acquisition of 6.5 acres and was sponsored by Creekside Conservancy. Funding request is $135,000, which again, no matching funds were provided, but the applicant does point to other acquisitions they've made in the area. This property is located about 3 miles southeast of Tenino. In the upland area of the property are some Douglas fir and native grasses. The lower area is comprised of seasonal wetlands and also backs up to Cozy Valley Creek, which provides salmon habitat. Future plans would be to conduct environmental restoration on the property if they are able to acquire it. This property abuts area that's already protected by Creekside in the same area, about 366 acres. And the applicants would anticipate closing on this project the end of next year. So here are some images of the property. The upper right shows a zoomed out aerial photo of the property outlined in red in its position relative to other properties that Creekside Conservancy has protected. If you were to zoom out of this picture even more, you'd see that actually there's a significantly more land to the northwest that is also protected by Creekside. So this is just one portion of their holdings in that area. The picture on the left is a closer zoomed in image of the property, and the 2 photos on the bottom provide an on the ground perspective. So here's a summary of the results from the ranking committee. The projects were scored by the ranking committee using that criteria that we discussed a moment ago. The Lower Deschutes River Floodplain Expansion Project was ranked first with an average score of 40.9 points out of a possible 55. And the MK Valley project scored second with an average score of 37. The ranking committee did want to pass on some impressions to the Board of County Commissioners in addition to the numerical scoring. They wanted to highlight that both projects present opportunities to add to existing blocks of conserved land. They wanted to communicate that these are both good conservation opportunities from their perspective, and they were particularly impressed with the amount of river frontage and salmon restoration opportunity with the Deschutes River Floodplain Expansion Project. And finally, both the ranking committee and the applicants expressed their appreciation for the board for opening up the second round of funding. So options for the board to consider, some options. Option one would be for the board to fully fund both projects at a cost of $256,500. This would be the preferred option of the ranking committee. If that is not possible, option two would be to fully fund the Lower Deschutes floodplain, the number one ranked project, and provide any remaining funds to the second ranked project, the MK Valley. And then option three is to not fund projects at this time. And so if funding is awarded, staff would circulate award letters for board signature. But I will pause there for discussion from the board. Thank you.
I don't know what our process is here, but like so to have a discussion, do we need a motion on the floor or do we just spitball?
Spitball.
Okay. Or is it time to make a motion?
Well, first we'll just kind of go if there's anybody has kind of clarifying questions and stuff, then we can get into a discussion.
I do have a couple.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I don't want to jump in ahead of my new seatmates here if they've got questions.
Go ahead. We'll get there, everybody.
Could you, at some point, and I don't know that you need to do this today, but we've put out 20 million over the last so many years to acquire projects. How much money did we bring in with that 20 million that enhanced the deal? And the reason I ask that, it doesn't sound like we've got any money coming in here besides what we might put into it. Is that right? So I always like to take our money that we do have and kind of come up with a multiplier.
Leverage.
Yeah, leverage
Like a
it
match?
and do more. What's that?
Are you referring to the match that has
Yeah.
come in?
Yeah, some kind of matching money. So, I mean, that's what we anticipated on our salmon process. We invested a lot of money in before the law was written on culverts and such, thinking it would make us more eligible for money as it comes in, and I think it has. And I just think we should always strive to get match to do more.
So
Related
both of these projects appear to be requesting 100% of the cost
That's correct.
from Conservation Futures.
That's correct.
Many, if not most, of the projects that the board has funded in the past, Conservation Futures has only been a portion of.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
getting at. So that I'm not against anything here. I just think that we should always strive to get the best deal we can using our money to do better, do more. So
I know
that's
you're
kind of,
kinda-
and so when we have applications and there's no other money coming in to match that, it limits the number of applications we can entertain. And I think it helps people think about, don't just look to this Conservation Futures, look at it as part of a process. I'm not saying it will or it won't, but
Match is one of the evaluation criteria for these projects.
yeah.
It is, and the board certainly has the discretion at a future briefing to discuss those criteria and whether there's any necessary tweaks that the board would like to explore.
But my asking, I don't wanna create a bunch of work for you, but I'd like to be able to use that as an example that, hey, we've put out $20 million of the taxpayers' money in doing so, we acquired $47 million worth of property or whatever. You know, something like that. I think it's a good selling point. And it'll encourage those that apply to do the same type of a presentation.
How do you determine value when it comes to conservation? Cause I mean, we're not buying the property,
We are buying these easements.
we're buying these easements and allowing them to maintain and operate it.
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay.
But we wanna get the most we can.
Sure.
So, and we should be able to go back and say for each project, how much money the total project cost was and how much of that was paid by the
Just from a
county.
pure real estate value you're talking about, or?
We have that information, so it's a couple things. The applicants provide us an estimate of what they believe the project's going to cost. And that is the cost of the land, or an easement if it's a conservation easement. But it can also be the due diligence cost, so the cost of doing the survey, the appraisal, staff work, their staff work on the application, all those things are eligible costs. So there's not always gonna be apples to apples on every single project, cause maybe one did those due diligence costs and maybe another one is purely just the cost of land. But what we can show is relative to the total project cost estimated by each of these projects, what was the conservation futures percentage? That's something we've got those records. I have a master spreadsheet of all the projects and yeah, so I can share that. That could be something that we could potentially work into future briefings as just a stat we bring back. And before that time, I can send that out.
I don't think we need it right now at all, just to, I mean, cause I'm kinda wondering how come we don't have some other matching money coming in to help us?
And that's just gonna be based on the individual project and what they have to offer.
Well, and what others think of the project too, it kinda allows you to think, well, how
We don't know,
important is this?
right, but we don't know if these particular applicants have gone to any other funders and requested funding.
True.
I know you're not a land appraiser, but I can't figure out why 10 times as much land right on the Deschutes River is cost less than like a tenth of that amount of land in Cozy Valley. Is it like developability or something?
Well, based on the
Or the only
information
fund?
provided.
I was assuming there was other funding for that ecosystems piece.
So based on the information they provided, it sounds like they have worked out a deal with the current landowner to sell the property at like $100,000 when it's assessed much higher. So the county assessor records have it at over $700,000.
For Lower Deschutes?
Yes, for Lower Deschutes.
So that's like a no-brainer, right?
But they've agreed to sell it at that lower price.
I mean, that's probably the benefit we're gonna get is the
There you
price
go,
at a
right
reduced
there.
price.
I mean, can't that be, you can write that in as match, right? Like what, sometimes, right, you can,
That becomes much more difficult to assess.
Yeah.
We know the hard dollars that went into each of these programs.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily know the reduced price we got compared to assessment, if any. That does create a lot of work.
yeah, but to say there's no match on these, there's all kinds of soft match and like,
Yeah,
I was
and it
thinking
looks
like
like
the
that.
the Hairnet property or the Creekside property, they're adjacent to what, 1,100 other acres, and when you're looking at conservation, I mean, there's a
Oh, yeah,
tremendous amount of
huge benefit.
value
Sure.
in the total
Yeah,
project.
no one's argued, yes.
So our first round was 391, which means if we were gonna allocate 500, we've got 109,000 to spend. In the past, we've stretched that because the fund balance had allowed it, but
That's right.
there's 109 left of the 500,000 we allocate. So if we were to try to accept the committee's recommendation to fund both these, we'd have to be going beyond the 500,000 and which like, we've done it before, but we would need to kind of know. And then,
Right.
is there another consideration, county manager? I heard you said there was something else that might be competing for these dollars.
Well, there's all the competing demands on this fund. We use this fund for the mitigation land for the habitat
Well, that's a
conservation
separate
plan.
set aside.
That there is a set aside specifically for that, but the board has also committed this fund for purchasing property upfront above the amount that we have set aside. What I'm saying though is that as we look at forest lands that we want to acquire from DNR or bring back into our stewardship, the HCP, other mitigation, this is the fund you have to use. That said, the last time I looked, which has been a little while, there was a lot of money in this fund, which is why I asked Nicole to join us, because I have not looked at this fund for a little while. And Andy has also sent us information on two prior projects that it looks like they're going to cost less. So there's little money freed up there. So I'm gonna turn to Nicole, who on the fly is gonna quickly bring up the Conservation Futures Fund. And
While she's doing that, can I get Commissioner Mejia, whose hand I saw?
That was going to be my exact question, was to see that fund balance and that forecast.
Okay.
right, and we don't have that financial plan prepared for you this morning, I apologize.
So I can't share my screen or anything like that, but I can speak to it, 'cause I'm not into the meeting. But our ending projected fund balance for 2023 is $8.1 million.
And how about 25?
So our.
Hey, Nicole, the microphone isn't really picking you up.
Yep.
She's going to come to the table, thank you, Commissioner Mejia.
Good job, that's right there. And also over there.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards.
Here's your sheet.
Thanks.
So, you asked what the ending fund balance for 2025 is.
Yeah.
It's about $8.1 million. And the reason for this is that we are projecting revenues of about $1.7 million in 24 and in 25. And based on the expenses that we have booked, as Robin had spoken to, the HCP plan, the land transfer for Summit Lake, and our normal $500,000 for capital projects, and our M&O transfers, I'm assuming that's what this is. We're still gonna have $8.1 million at the end of
So
2025.
there's a ton of money in this fund.
Yeah, and I'd like to just, if I could, let the new commissioners kind of understand this. So 1.7, when we were building our model for this, it was coming in about 1.4.
Right.
So that's extra money in a sense, because what we had at the time that 1.4 was coming in was about 400,000 was going to the M&O for existing acquisitions and projects. That left $1 million freed up. Half of that was allocated to the HCP for acquisition for the mitigation land, and then half was freed up for these community projects. So that's why we've got the 500,000. But previous to us building that model, there had been a buildup of conservation futures where the commissioners hadn't spent it on anything, not knowing where the HCP was gonna land.
Yep.
So we do have this, so a lot of that 8.1 million is really previously earmarked for the HCP mitigation acquisitions. But 1.7 million coming in versus 1.4 means there is a little bit of extra flex there based on our last conversation.
And maybe to add to that, sometimes we have projects that we think it's gonna be spent, and for some reason or another, it falls through, and then that money comes back as
Right.
well.
Or,
So-
or projects cost less.
Like
as
what
the-
we talked about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, Commissioner Forner, you said you were listening to the meeting yesterday. Did you happen to hear my report on Summit Lake at the end?
I did not.
Okay, so that's when the county manager mentioned Summit Lake. So that's kind of a separate thing where we have these lands of right above Summit Lake that we're gonna be clear cut by DNR. I'm gonna cause a lot of damage to the lake and the property owners. And our staff substantiated that. DNR didn't agree with us, so we went to court and we're in the middle of a settlement, which may result in us swapping out other lands for those lands and but there's administrative cost to do that and protect those residents' property and our lake water quality. And county manager was just suggesting that to pay, this have to end up being a source that we use to pay those administrative fees to do that settlement. So that's what she meant when she mentioned that.
That's right.
But we're talking about 100,000, 200,000-ish.
Right, a few 100,000, not a few million. What we will be talking about that's in the million range that's not on here is if we have opportunities to purchase real estate as we have in the last few years that we can use toward mitigation. Habitat mitigation
Right.
in general, and that is not included in any earmark on the plan at this point. But $8 million is a lot of money.
It's unofficially earmarked because that's what the commissioners held it for back before I was on the board.
Right, but it's not on this financial plan,
Right.
which is why we're comfortable saying an $8 million fund balance. Also, for the benefit of our new commissioners, the revenue for this fund is a property tax. So it's very stable revenue.
Time check 10:36. We said we're gonna go a little extra because we got an hour but yeah, I guess we gotta get to the chase.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I move that we fully fund both projects.
Second.
Second, yeah, okay.
3 seconds there, so. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. I'm gonna give Commissioner Mejia the second there. So discussion on this motion.
I think these two projects are great. I had the opportunity to go down to the Deschutes and see all of the work that they're doing, and it's really incredible. They're already working with public health and social services and monitoring like the water quality around those areas, and so I think that both these projects are extremely worthwhile, so.
Let me
Anybody
ask
wanna
a
speak
technical-
against it?
Let me ask a technical question as we move forward on this. Sounds like everybody's in agreement, but is this the format that we use to do it, or do we have to have some kind of a public hearing or AIS or?
So, again, process. Usually in a work session, we'll ask commissioners for guidance and we'll ask for a thumbs up or
Okay.
thumbs down. If we get thumbs up, enough thumbs up, then staff will go back and prepare the appropriate documents and bring them for a Tuesday afternoon meeting, which would be the time to make the motion
Okay.
to approve the projects, but this is great. And you still need to do that.
Historically, we've not done the.
Right, the letter.
But the
Yeah.
letter would be
You'll
circulated
go,
for board signature.
this thing, there's a letter that the board will sign that will commit the county to these grants. So
Yeah.
it sounds like we're good to go.
Okay, I don't think there's any disagreement on this, so I see 5 thumbs basically. I heard 5 thumbs. So, great, so let's move forward.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. We're
Thank you
adjourned.
so much.
thank you.
How your tooth, Madam Chair?
Okay.
Okay.